Good morning, Broncos fans. Welcome to Legends of Mile High. I'm Thomas Hall, your host, and today we are going to jump in and talk about why this draft is very important draft for the future of the Broncos. We'll talk about why that is. We'll talk about some reasons why a lot of players who we have seen on the Broncos for a while will be gone. But let's first set the stage a little bit because back in 2010, Josh McDaniels had really started to ruin the Broncos, had kind of culminated with his dismissal in the middle of that season. The Broncos were a mess. And I know that Peyton Manning was a huge reason for the turnaround in Broncos, in the Broncos in that era. But you also have to understand there was a couple really solid drafts that really set the stage for that turnaround. It wasn't just Peyton Manning. So in 2010, Josh McDaniels did leave the Broncos with some pretty good players in the draft. Demaryius Thomas, Eric Decker, Zane Beadles. They were young players that were coming into their own, when that season, that 2013 season, the record-breaking greatest offense of all time season. And then in 2011, they also got Orlando Franklin and Julius Thomas, who were part of that team as well. And somebody called Von Miller, of course, came in that draft, came to the Broncos. And then also in 2012, you kind of set the stage for that greatest defense, arguably one of the greatest defenses of all time when we got Derek Wolfe, Malik Jackson, and Danny Trevathan. So there was 3 drafts in that era that really kind of changed the face of the Broncos, and they were able to get some great free agents and things like that, and ended up going to a Super Bowl and ended up winning a Super Bowl. But a lot of it set the stage of the draft. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that today. But first, let me just make sure Facebook is up and running before I do. Should be, but here we are. Oh, great. And I'm going to welcome some folks in. Good Jeremy Sean coming in this morning saying, "Morning, Thomas. Hopefully we'll look back on 2024 as the real start of a very successful Sean Payton era in Denver." Yeah, I mean, they can't miss in this draft. They really can't. And we're going to talk about some of the young players from last year's draft that are going to have to step up as well. So hopefully, when folks look back on the Sean Payton era, they can say, oh yeah, 2023 and 2024 were really a fruitful draft, even if 2023 doesn't seem like it at the moment. But yeah, we'll get into that. So thank you, Jeremy, for being here. Michael Reinke is coming in saying, "Good morning, Thomas, on Legends of Mile High. Go Broncos." Michael, thank you for being here. It's great to see you. So thank you. And always thank you for supporting Mile High Huddle in general. And we got Kevin Grays coming in. Morning, Thomas. Josh was not an average OC. Who would want this loser? I'm assuming you're talking about Josh McDaniels. I mean, he's not a head coach. If you're talking about somebody else, I'm not sure who it is, but man, that was a terrible decision, and they removed it quickly and went about changing it quickly. So that's what was important. But yeah, he's been a disaster every place he's gone as a head coach, and has only been successful when he's really the offensive coordinator for Bill Belichick. So we'll see if he gets another offensive coordinator gig. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But yeah, he's a wreck. And Jeremy Sean is reminding us that the Josh debacle led to Elway coming in. Elway drafted Vaughn and recruited Peyton, then was the architect of the Super Bowl 50 defense. Things can turn around quickly with good decisions. Absolutely correct. And it really does start, with this last year's draft, hopefully, and this year's draft. So let's first talk about who the Broncos are going to be losing and position groups that are going to be really decimated in this offseason. So first of all, there's several unrestricted free agents that the Broncos aren't going to be able to pay for a lot of them. I mean, you've got Josie Jewell. He's an inside linebacker, a starter. He's probably going to be gone, but you also have to understand there's 2 role players in that same position group that are also unrestricted free agents. They might be able to retain them. We'll see. But Justin Strnad and Jonas Griffith, who's often injured, they're role players that they're going to be gone. So that group really is Alex Singleton, as a real surefire, starter, and so they're going to have to go out and find somebody. Their defensive line, interior defensive line, is going to be pretty decimated. You've got Mike Purcell and Jonathan Harris. They're two starters pretty much, or reserve players that played a significant amount of time, unrestricted free agents. They may be gone, so that's tough. And then you also have to think about DJ Jones, another starter. He's not an unrestricted free agent, but if the Broncos want to get under the cap, he may be a cap casualty. So that's another position group that is decimated. And then finally, offensive tackle is something that Broncos are going to be needing to address as well, because they've got their two backups, Cam Fleming and Bailey, offensive tackles, who will be gone. And it's not just me saying this for the last couple of weeks, but now other insiders are starting to step in and say Garrett Bowles may be a trade candidate or maybe gone as well. So you've got offensive tackle, which needs to be addressed heavily. And then finally, you got quarterback position. You've got to do something about that. Russell Wilson's not going to be on the team. And then you've got other starters like Michael Burton, Lloyd Cushenberry, Adam Troutman, PJ Locke, Fabian Moreau. They're all going to be probably gone, as well as unrestricted free agents, or maybe can retain one or two of those players for cheaper price. We'll see. But that's a rough start to 2024 offseason for sure. Lawrence Rivera coming in. Good morning, Lawrence. How are you doing? What up, Cowboy Thomas? He says, this is definitely going to be a breakdown year with the way Sean sets us up. Yeah, I mean, it is true. They're going to have to tear it down, but in order to bounce back quickly, we're talking about the draft, and the ultimate draft being very, very important is this 2024 draft. They're going to have to come away with some good players, because they can't afford to go out and fill in a lot of these areas with free agents. They can get some aging, 1-year deals, maybe aging players who can step in a couple spots, but really they're going to have to hit on several players, not just one or two, but like 4 probably players in this draft if they want to see success in a couple years. They're just going to have to. And then Jeremy's coming back in saying, I could see Josie taking a bit of a pay cut to stay. It seems like Drew Sanders is more of an outside guy, so not a clear replacement. He could. Yeah, he could. I don't know if they will bring him back. I think they want to move on, and they need to move on. They need to find somebody that can hopefully cover a tight end. That we thought that was going to be Drew Sanders, right? Drew Sanders, that was the talk. His versatility and his athleticism was going to be able to fill in at inside linebacker and become a mainstay there. But then they did move him to, a lot to the edge area this year when he wasn't really cutting it inside linebacker. And I'm not saying he can't. I'm not saying that he won't be a good inside linebacker. What I saw from him is he didn't have the read and react ability of an inside linebacker that I would like to see, right? But that doesn't mean he can't. Get better at that position, get more comfortable, and then be able to use his athleticism and react to those plays quicker. I think he was guessing a few times. I think that he was a little tentative, not knowing exactly where to be as an inside linebacker. So they put him at edge and the outside, just to kind of use his athleticism a little more without a lot of that mental part of the game. And inside linebacker, there's a lot of mental part of the game that people don't realize that they need to have. So it's an inside linebacker crew that is has a big question mark around it for sure. So thank you for that. And then Kevin Gray's reminding us that Houston is a good example of being able to turn it around quickly. Yeah, for sure. Well, number one, they really hit it with DeMeco Ryans, a good coach for sure. He really got that team going, and that team was that Houston team was. I think they didn't win over 4 games for 4 seasons or 3 seasons. I mean, it was a pretty poorly coached team and a roster that wasn't very good, and he turned it around. But CJ Stroud helped a lot. They landed their quarterback, but it wasn't just him. There were some other players that really stepped up. So it's it's interesting to look at that team and go, why couldn't the Broncos really turn it around this year? It was terrible to watch the exact opposite kind of thing happen, where they went from a terrible team to a really good team, and the Broncos went from a terrible team to a not as terrible of a team. It was a shame to to watch someone who I really wanted as a coach in Broncos. After Harbaugh, D'Amico Ryans was high on my list. So anyway, I digress. Can't worry about it now. Keith Brugman coming in saying, "Good morning, Thomas. Hitting on draft picks. How do you feel about Sanders, Moss, Skinner, and Forsyth? Last year's picks that didn't get a lot of field time." That's exactly what I want to talk about. So I talked about early on how 2010 and 2011 kind of set the stage for that 2013 team that went to the Super Bowl. And then, so you got to think about, it's going to take a couple of years for these players to really kind of develop. But next year, they are going to have to get playing time. Like I said, you've got inside linebacker crew that has been decimated, right? That will be decimated. It's going to be Alex Singleton and maybe Drew Sanders. So Drew Sanders has to step up. He has to be a player that can step into the inside linebacker spot to be a good player. He can't, if the Broncos really want to turn this thing around quickly, he can't be the reserve edge guy, right? He has to step into that inside linebacker spot. You also had, like you said, Riley Moss. The cornerback situation isn't pretty either. I think Pat Surtain, I don't think they're going to trade him, even though the rumors say that they will. I don't think so. So you've got Pat Surtain, you've got McMillan, who's really good on the slot. But after that, you really, you don't have a lot going on. Fabian Moreau is the starter who really folded down the stretch. Damari Mathis did not have that kind of uptick in his sophomore season that we were hoping for. So it's up to Riley Moss to step in, and he didn't get to play much. So he needs to step up his game and step in. They have to rely on these people. They have to trust that they evaluated these players and put them into the positions and see what they can do. They can't do what they did last year and not have them play, right? That's the thing that really bothered me, is when you knew you weren't going anywhere, when you knew you weren't going to make the playoffs, you were benching Russ. Why were these players just still kind of sitting on the bench and not playing? They needed to put them in. JL Skinner is the biggest question mark in my mind. Someone who many thought was going to be a steal being drafted where he did. He wasn't even active until like the final game of the season. So that's a big question mark, but that's another position that he's going to have to step in, because you may see Justin Simmons get traded. PJ Locke, who stepped in, is a unrestricted free agent. Obviously, Kareem Jackson's gone. Caden Stearns can't stay healthy. JL Skinner has to come in this offseason ready to play. They're going to have to put him in. There's unless he's just so bad that they're like, oh, we're going to just wash our hands. That's another player that they should have looked at, seen what he could do on the defense, but they didn't do it. And then, of course, like you said, Forsyth, he's going to have to step in for Cushenberry. I don't think they're going to keep Cushenberry. Cushenberry is going to get a payday. I think teams that have the money are going to pay him, even for this 1 year of good play. They're probably going to let him walk, and he's going to get paid. So it's between Wattenberg and Forsyth. Again, the Broncos need to trust their evaluation of these positions and put them in and just go with it, because they're going to have to. They don't have the money to go out and bring in another center. So Forsyth, in my mind, Forsyth is going to be the guy. I don't trust Wattenberg as much. I think he's a good role player, but I don't think he's a starter. So thank you, Keith. That's a great question. And we got Quentin Caldwell coming in. Thank you for the support with a super chat. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Saying, good morning, everyone. I don't want to trade PS2, but if it gets one of the top two, then I'll learn to accept it. Yeah, that's the question. That's the big question, right? Like, how are they going to move up? If Sean Payton is going to move up in this draft, how are they going to do it? They don't have a lot of draft capital to do it. I know that there's some trade potentials floating around. It wasn't enough in my mind. I think that, if they want to get up to the number one spot, the Bears aren't going to take, what has been kind of floated around. They're going to kind of laugh at them if they do that. So Patrick Surtain is the only key player to really get the capital to move up. And so that's why everybody's talking about it. I don't think they're going to trade him. My feeling is you can't deplete your team to get one player. I mean, these young players need to become the nucleus of the team, because if they deplete their team of their star talent, it's going to take more than 1 or 2 years to bounce back. It's going to take 3 or 4. And in the NFL, that's that's a very long time for an owner to stay patient, 3 or 4 years. It's just it's pretty tough. But Quentin, I appreciate you coming in with the question. I appreciate you coming in with the support. But if he does get traded, yeah, I mean, just Broncos fans are going to have to learn to live with it. But they better make sure that the player that they get, assuming it's a quarterback, most likely if they want to move up, that quarterback better hit. He better be a superstar, because otherwise, boy, uh, that would just be a disaster. And Quentin's coming in, or Lawrence coming in saying Sean got rid of Wilson and PS2 in 1 year. That's worse than McDaniels. I mean, yeah, that's a pretty big decision to get rid of those guys. I mean, Russell Wilson is obviously going to be gone. Like I just don't think they can work together. I know that there's talks that that's not decided he could stay, but the writing's on the wall. But yeah, I mean, you don't want to deplete your team of talent, because like I said, you deplete your team of talent this team is already void of a lot of talent, and you're going to get rid of it all. One quarterback, a rookie quarterback coming in, isn't going to save the team. Now, could they rebuild everything? Yeah, for sure they could. But like I said, it's going to take more time. And are these owners going to be patient for a 4-year turnaround when they just watched a huge turnaround in Houston? It's not the typical situation, right? Because the trade of Russell Wilson and the trade for Sean Payton and the big contract for Russell Wilson really set them up to be in a dire situation when it comes to the salary cap and draft picks. And Sean Payton likes to trade those draft picks and move up. So it's not likely that they're going to, trade back and get a lot more. So they're going to have to trade players. PS2 is the biggest key, but you can trade Garrett Bowles. You can trade Justin Simmons. You can trade Jerry Jeudy. You could even trade Cortland Sutton, although I don't really think they should. But you can trade, get 3 players and get some draft capital. And these are players who probably, I mean, Jerry Jeudy might be in the future of the Broncos if Sean Payton really likes him, but Simmons and Bowles probably aren't. They need to get younger. They need to get younger at key positions, safety and offensive tackle. Definitely need to get younger there. And I like both of the players. I like both of them. They're good players, but you got to make some moves. You have to make some moves without making moves to get rid of your best player on the team, who's young and is in the future, of this team, or should be. And Jeremy is coming back in saying, I would personally rather have Bo Nix, Patrick Surtain, and all my future draft picks than a Williams or a May and no picks for a couple years. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not sold on Bo Nix. He could be a star in the league. But he could also be a bust. I don't know. It's hard to say. But you're right. Like, do you want to go up and get someone like Caleb Williams and Drake May? They're not surefire, whatever superstars in this league, right? I mean, you saw CJ Stroud become one, but he wasn't at the time. I mean, you really got to go. You got to look at. There's only been a few times where the quarterback that you knew that this quarterback was going to be a star in this league, and I don't think Williams or May, either one of them, are surefire bets. So you're trading up your future to get somebody that you don't know for sure if they're going to work out. And David Youngkin's coming in saying Patrick Surtain is the foundation for the defense. The issue with this is the Broncos need a true leader of the defense. You're absolutely right, David. They need to bring in some folks. They need to get some folks in here who are true leaders. I like Patrick Surtain, but I don't know if he is the leader. I mean, maybe he will be. Maybe he's just kind of growing into it. But they need some real leaders, and they need some real impact players. Patrick Surtain is definitely someone who is an impact player, but they need more. They don't have enough on that defense to really turn it around. They need some real good impact players, and they've got to find it in the draft. Quentin coming back in with another super chat. Thank you so much, Quentin. Appreciate you being here. Says, I still love to trade down and get more picks. We do that, and we could get one of these nice offensive tackles and wide receiver. I have patience with developing a quarterback. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, if you look at the actual draft, if you look at the numbers, right, it tells you that the draft is not a certainty. It is a roll of the dice. And now I'm not trying to say that it's all luck. Don't get me wrong. Like, they put a ton of effort into this, but the amount of effort that NFL teams put into this to get it right, they still miss on so many players, even in the first round. The first round is a 50-50 bargain. I mean, that's a coin flip. And even with all the work and the poking and the prodding and the testing and, interviewing and all of that they do, they still miss so many times when you're trying to get an impact player in the first round and you don't. So for me, the more draft picks you have, the more ability you have to hit. It's just, same thing. Like, the more times you flip a coin, the more times you're going to get hits, right? So it's just the way it is. So you got to have more, arrows in your quiver in order to get the guys that you want that pan out to make up for the ones that you miss on. So trading back seems like a really good decision in this draft. However, the Broncos have to get a quarterback. So do they love a quarterback that they can trade back and still get, like Mike Pratt? They're talking about Pratt they've interviewed with him twice. Cecil Lammy's it down there in the Senior Bowl, came on Mile High Insiders. Go check that out. He said that they met with everybody once, but they met with Pratt from that QB from Tulane twice, 3rd round pick, possibly. Maybe they're going to go with that, but they definitely have to nail this draft for sure. They have to, and so that's the conundrum. Do they trade up to get the quarterback that they really think can turn this thing around, or do they, wait, get a good, solid young nucleus of the team, then draft a quarterback next year when they have the firepower to move up? Because I think they're going to take a step back next year. Then they're going to have less wins next year, in my mind, because they're going to rely on too many young players, inexperienced players, or older aging vets that they bring in on 1-year deal to really be competitive. So they may have a better opportunity next year. Although, is there going to be a great quarterback next year that they really love? I don't know. It's a conundrum, but they put themselves in this situation. Trading for the coach, trading for Russell Wilson, they put themselves in this situation, and it's going to be tough. Clayton Huron coming in. Good morning, Clayton. Thank you for being here. It's good to see you, saying, hey, guys. And also saying smash that like button and share. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the reminder for that, Clayton, and really appreciate you being here. So thank you very much. And Keith Brugman's coming in back in saying, if you give Sean Payton the power to move on from Russ, don't you also need to give him the power to get his quarterback? If not, what are we doing? Yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, you have to. If you need a quarterback, you have to go get one, and you have to keep trying until you find one. But the problem is, if you don't hit on that quarterback, and you've traded your draft choices, and you have all of these unrestricted free agent starters that are leaving, and you've traded some players because you needed capital to move up and get them, how long is it going to take to make this team a winner? That's the problem. Like, again, like, how long will it take to turn this around if they go up and get their quarterback and they miss? Is Sean Payton going to be around in 4 years? I don't know. There's a big, you got to trust. I mean, as a coach and an evaluator, you got to trust what you see and trust your ability to turn that team around. But it's a situation where you're looking at this roster and you're like, whoa, this is going to be a rough offseason. It really is. They don't have the money to go spend, and they don't have a lot of capital to go spend, and they're going to be, this roster is going to look different, and it's not going to maybe not look as impressive. So, but the young guys that we're talking about have to step up. Now, if those young guys from last year, like we talked about, Moss, Forsythe, Sanders, these, and Mims too. Mims has to develop and become better. If you look at those guys and they step up, man, maybe it does turn around quicker. Those players should have got more playing time. That's the way it is. They should have got more playing time to really evaluate them, but they didn't. Clayton, I'm sorry to hear that you're feeling sick. Finally back on your feet. Denver Broncos for life. Clayton, thank you. I'm glad you're feeling better. It's terrible to be sick. I mean, it really is. So, man, I hate being sick, but luckily it's been a while since I have been. So I'm glad you're feeling better. And David's coming in asking this question saying, Thomas, how many of the number one draft picks, I'm assuming at QB, was a bust? That's why I'm not to move up, because you never know who is a bust or not. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You never know. I mean, there's been a lot of first pick overall, the number one quarterback taken, number one draft choice, didn't pan out a lot of times. And then you can look at where they've taken 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the first round, and maybe only one of them panned out and became the player that they needed. And then you've got, look at Jared Goff. Like, he's not even on his original team, and he's finally playing better. It took several years for him to become a good quarterback. So you don't know. It's such a gamble. The draft really is. Even after all, like I said, after all the work they put in, it's still a gamble. So it's you got to take a shot. You got to take a shot and hope for the best. But the Broncos are not in a situation, like I keep saying, they're not in a situation that's optimal, right? They're not in a situation where they can risk it all and hope for the best, because they've got so many holes on this team. And Michael Ronquillo coming in saying the Broncos need 9 or 10 NFL draft picks, not 6 NFL draft picks this year. Absolutely right, Michael. They need more picks that they don't have. And that's why you're going to see some trading. You're going to see some players traded away who we've watched for the last several years, who are pretty good players. And because they can't trade a scrub and think they're going to get something for it. They have to trade good players. That's why the Patrick Surtain thing is the rumors out there that they're trading. And Zoe LaGuardia is coming in saying, look at the local grocery store, might find a Kurt Warner, LOL. Yeah, it's true. I mean, you can hit on later picks, or you can find a quarterback. I mean, Kurt Warner obviously, was a unicorn, so to speak. Tom Brady as well. You typically don't find great quarterbacks just, late in the draft and, in a grocery store. It's true. But, you got to give it a shot. Now, I know that the argument for, we'll just take a quarterback later is, Tom Brady and blah, blah, blah. But people remember Tom Brady. They forget about the hundreds probably of quarterbacks that were taken late that never amounted to anything. So it's a tough thing to find. So Joey, thank you for coming in. Appreciate you being here and appreciate that comment. And Lawrence is coming back in saying, imagine all the draft picks Sean could have had if we were last in the league. Sean tried, but Russell's feelings couldn't handle being made fun of another season. He was basically the butt of all jokes in the NFL until he started winning. Yeah, I mean, if he had a large amount of draft, I mean, if they hadn't traded for Russell Wilson, right, they would have more draft picks. And Sean Payton obviously cost some draft picks to come here, but they did. And I still hold the thought that almost all GMs would have made that trade for Russell Wilson. Winning quarterback, Super Bowl winning quarterback, was a good player. He came in and Hackett. It was a terrible situation. And then, he's not a good fit for Sean Payton's offense. So that's it's just one of those things. But yeah, those draft picks would have been nice right about now. And Conga's coming in. Broncos need to hit on every pick for the next few seasons. Well, pretty close. They, if they want to get this team turned around quickly, the draft picks in 2023, those young guys that didn't get any playing time have to take a big step next season, and they have to hit on at least 3 to 4 players in this upcoming draft who turn out, not just role players, but that turn out to be good. And that takes some luck. Some of these later picks have to be like diamonds in the rough that nobody saw coming. So thank you, Kong. I appreciate for you being here. So, and Michael Ronquillo, Broncos need to find a Brock Purdy kind of QB in the NFL draft. I'm hoping that you mean find a Brock Purdy because that's a fit for Sean Payton's system. Finding a Brock Purdy in the draft in the 7th round at quarterback is extremely difficult. So it would be nice if they could find a late round draft choice. But you're right. They need to find a quarterback that fits Sean Payton. And because Sean Payton isn't willing to, he did change his offense? Somewhat. He wasn't willing to go all the way, change it completely to, put Russell Wilson in the exact perfect position to succeed. So he doesn't want to relinquish that in my mind. And so they need to find someone that fits perfectly. And you know what? Stidham may fit his system, but Stidham's not a great quarterback. He's going to probably be that bridge to the next one, but it's going to be rough if you're going to watch Jarrett Stidham play for the entire season next year. That's going to be rough. It's a tough one. All right, we're going to take one more question here, and then we're going to probably wrap up the show. But Lawrence is asking, who's the most marketable QB in the draft? That's the only thing that's going to work for Sean. He needs to have that personality. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Sean Payton has talked about Caleb Williams in the past as being a generational talent. Maybe he thinks that that's the guy that they want to go up and get. There's just so many question marks for me in the quarterbacks in this draft. Now, Drake May, I think he'd be good, right? I mean, but in the right system. Caleb Williams, he's got some question marks. There's just no sure thing in this draft that you can really sell me on. I really like, the Daniels out of LSU, but you're going to have to move up to go get those guys. So it's a tough one. It's a tough sell, right? Like if it was a draft where it was, Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning, I mean, that's a no brainer. You're like, okay, we're going up, we're going to trade everything to go get them. But this year's draft, there's just too many question marks for me. And, whether they're going to fit the system. I mean, like Bo Nix will be there, right, to take, but he's got a lot to learn in the NFL. And I keep saying this. I mean, the coaches at Oregon were holding up gigantic signs telling him what the coverage was. He can't do that. They're not going to be able to do that in the NFL. He's going to be able to read those defenses. So there's holes in everybody's game. And, it's just, to me, it's like, it's going to be a tough sell to say we're going to go up and trade everything for one of these guys because there's holes in their game. That's all there is. Keith Brugman's reminding us the most successful 7th round pick QB before Purdy was Trevor Siemian. Trevor Siemian had some success, but he definitely isn't as good as Purdy. He had limitations to his game, but yeah, I mean, for the Broncos, he, started a couple seasons and, he stuck around the league, and it's one of those situations where the evaluations didn't have him ranked very high, and he ended up being better than they anticipated, but he's definitely not an elite quarterback who can take a team to the Super Bowl. Michael Ronquillo saying, great show today, Thomas, on Legends of Mile High. Have a great day, Broncos fans. Go Broncos. Thank you for that. And with that, I am going to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for joining Legends of Mile High. Appreciate you all being here. Appreciate the support and the conversation. Have a great weekend to all you Broncos fans out there, and to the folks that jumped into the chat this morning. Thank you very much. And we will see you next Friday. Have a great day.